everyone, welcome back to Mrs. J's Cooking. We are making pies and I have a helper with me. So this is Dawson, he's gonna be helping me today. And he made some drums with our kitchen tools. Today we're going to be making pie crust. Yay! You excited to get started? Yes. All right, this recipe is one that I have from when I was in school, and my family consumer science teacher, which was formerly called home economics, taught us how to make. This is a great recipe. You want your pie crust to be really flaky, and I'll talk to you more about that in a little bit here. But for this recipe, what we're going to need is flour, sugar, salt, and ice water. Also, some of your equipment that you're going to need. Winston has joined us, everyone. You can hear him saying hi. We need a mixing bowl, 1 cup and 1/3 of a cup for dry. What is that?
I don't know.
What's it say? Can you read it?
Taco.
No, it doesn't say tacos. We need wax paper, measuring spoons, a pastry blender. If you remember in class, we talked about pastry blenders and how they're used to cut in the fat. Yes, we need a fork, and one last thing. Do you know what that's called?
Rolling pin.
A rolling pin.
A bat.
It is a rolling pin. That should not be used like a bat, as you can see.
Yes, you can.
But Dawson's excited to make pie today and help. And this is just something really easy you can make. Pie crust is a simple recipe that everybody should know how to make their own. It is more cost effective than buying stuff in the store. It is a little more time consuming, but that's okay because cost and taste is much better. All right, let's get our ingredients pre-measured. Okay. For our recipe today, we're gonna need 1/2 cup of vegetable shortening, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of sugar. We will need 2 to 4 tablespoons of ice water and 1 1/3 cups of flour. All right, so we are going to make pie crust today. Now for this recipe, we are making for the 1 crust pie. This would be for like your pumpkin pie or custard pies, or maybe you have a dessert that just needs a simple pie crust. If you want the 2 crust pie, what you would want to do is simply double this recipe. Are you ready to get started? Yes. All right, so we have our mixing bowl here, ready to go. And what do we need to put in? We're gonna put 1 1/3 cups of flour. So there, Dawson's putting in the 1 cup.
I put in that.
Yep, and put in the 1/3. Let me make sure that's all out of there. Good job. All right, so we have that in here. Next, what we're going to add is 1 tablespoon of
Tacos.
not tacos, of sugar. So the tablespoon of, hi Winston, hello everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I put in?
Yes, put 1 tablespoon of sugar in there. We have everything pre-measured and leveled off, and then we're going to put in 1 teaspoon of salt. So go ahead and put this in. Excellent. All right. So,
Where do we use this?
well, that's a pastry blender, so we're not going to use that. Let's just use, you know what, just use this fork here to stir it around. All right, just to mix, we want to mix together our salt and sugar pretty well. Actually, let's get a spoon because it's mixing it, but I'd like it mixed just a little bit better than that. Here, use a spoon instead. All right, okay, here, we'll put the fork here. We'll use that in a little bit. Now, pie crust, there are different types of pie crust you can make. Some people will use oil, others will use butter. This recipe is using shortening, which is fat from vegetables. Yes, that's a thing. But with this pie crust, it is nice and flaky, and this has been one that really is no fail for me. So that's why we use this particular recipe, especially in class. Some of the pies that we usually make are pumpkin, we make cherry, blueberry, and peach pies. So I will be putting those recipes out. But today, this is going to be for a pumpkin pie, and then later we will be making an apple pie. And you can check out those recipes in the other videos that I will be posting as well. And Dawson, are you gonna help me make all the pies today? Yes, awesome. We're going to get 1/2 cup of shortening into this, so go ahead and help me.
Oh, this is thick.
Yeah, So you gotta be real careful scooping that out. Whoop.
Or else that will happen.
Yeah. So scoop that in, make sure you pack it in. That's okay. All right, so let's use your rubber scraper and scrape this out of there. So just go around the edge. It's kind of tricky for little hands. Can mommy help you?
No.
No. Here, let me help you. Here, look, let me just help a second. Just give me 1 second here, okay? Let's get this out of here and you're gonna help me with the next part, okay? Don't wipe your hands on anything, they're messy. No! All right, so we are getting all of our, oh no, now you gotta go wash your hands. That is not nice. Do not wipe your hands on your clothes. Use the soap, yep, get it nice and clean. So we're getting all of our shortening out of the cup and also off of that rubber scraper. So I'm gonna tell you all a little trick when you're working with shortening and also when you're working with peanut butter or stuff that's kind of sticky and messy like this. So I need, Dawson, if you would grab me some paper towels. Go get me a paper towel. Just flicked his water on me. You know at school that would not be okay. You shouldn't do it at home either. Use one paper towel to dry your hands, please, and give me, okay, go get me a new paper towel. I'm not using that one. Thank you. So something that's handy and a good trick to do so you can get this clean is whenever you're finished, use a paper towel and wipe off any of the excess shortening that is left over. It'll be much easier to wash because if you would just put this in the dishwasher or try to wash it in your sink, you would have all kinds, just 1 second, you would have all kinds of like film and grime left behind. So you want to wipe this off with a paper towel and it will really save you an extra step when you're washing your dishes. Look at how nice that is. I mean, we'll still wash these, but this just makes it a little cleaner. We're not using our spoon yet. We're gonna use a kitchen tool called a pastry blender. That is exactly right. Will you show our friends at home what this is? Let's see here.
It's a taco.
So we have, Dawson loves tacos if you haven't noticed. This is our pastry blender. So go ahead and just get started. We're going to cut in the fat into the recipe. So as we use our pastry blender, you want to get any of the excess shortening off the sides of the bowl and keep cutting the fat until it's in teeny tiny pieces. So we just keep doing this, and every so often you'll have to use your rubber scraper and get any of the excess off. Now, if you don't have a pastry blender, you could use 2 knives, and I'll show you how you could do that here. You could use 2 knives by making a like scissors through the pie crust. It takes a little bit longer, but it is one way you can also cut the fat if you don't have a pastry blender. So you want your mix to be real crumbly, just like that. Any large pieces, we are going to make sure it's nice and crumbly. Next, we're going to add our water. Now that our pie crust is almost ready, we have it nice and crumbly. It's gonna look a little weird to you. That's okay. You want it to be crumbly, and we're gonna add 2 to 4 tablespoons of water. Now, you do not add it all at once. You add it one by one, and as you add it, you stir it with a fork. What will happen is your pie crust will just slowly come together, but it will still be crumbly. It won't look like the pie crust you expect it to until we roll it out. All right, are you ready? Yes. So let's add 1 tablespoon at a time. So this is ice water. You want it to be really cold. So Dawson's gonna get 1 filled up to the very top and just sprinkle it around, not in one spot. All right, so we're gonna add that in, and we're gonna wait and use our fork and just blend this in together. You want your pie crust to still have the little pieces of shortening throughout. That's gonna help your pie have a nice, go ahead, a nice flaky texture. those little pieces of shortening, or maybe you use butter instead. Think of those little pieces of fat and hold on to the bowl, okay? Think of those little pieces of fat, and whenever you bake it in the oven, they will melt and go into the other pieces, leaving little air holes. Those little air holes are what is going to allow for the layers in the crust, in the dry spots. And we know the dry spots because they're the tiny little crumbs. So sprinkle it around over here. There you go. And then we're just going to mix this together. Our pie crust, now that it has come together a little bit here, it's still crumbly, and that is okay. So do not worry if it's still crumbly. We are going to need wax paper. You're gonna make 2 strips of it, and a rolling pin. Also, you need your pie plate. The pie plate is where we'll fit the dough down into. So for our wax paper, we just need it to be probably, I ripped that a little bit, but that'll be okay.
Also, sorry for making the water noise.
Oh, honey, it's okay. Well, I'm glad you were washing stuff. That's good. So about this big, so it looks like a couple feet, because you want to have room to roll out your pie crust, and I need 2 of these because we're actually going to roll our pie crust between the wax paper, and that will save you on cleanup, and it will make it easier to transfer into your pie plate. You excited to do that? Yeah? All right. Let's get this ready. Water there. Somebody decided to make a little bit of a water mess. So we are going, that would be you. So I'm gonna wipe this off, and then we will be back with rolling out the pie crust. So our dough's nice and crumbly. We have our wax paper. So I'm simply going to lay the first sheet down and just get all of our pie crust out of the bowl. And as I mentioned before, this won't look ready until you actually roll it out. So we'll dump this out. Try not to spill any outside of your wax paper. Gather and just kind of press it into a little mound. And then get your second piece of wax paper here and roll it out. Just carefully pressing out the dough so it doesn't go off the edges, and then roll it into a little bit more than the size of your pie plate or pie pan, usually a few inches longer so we can trim off the excess. Now that your pie crust is rolled out, just simply take that wax paper, and if you're making the double pie crust and you doubled the recipe, set it aside because you can reuse that for your next round. And then we will put your pie plate or pie pan, I have a pie plate here, upside down, and just very carefully flip this over. And we are going to peel away, kind of like a sticker, peel away the wax paper and then trim the edges. It will be a little crumbly, that's okay. If your pie crust sticks, just simply rub the outside of the wax paper and it usually releases your pie crust. If you over roll your pie crust or if it's too wet, it will stick to this. You want your shortening to not really melt. So trying to keep it from melting is the best way to go. At this point, we're gonna trim off our edges and then shape our pie crust. With this pie plate, you can see I don't have a lot of overhang to really make the pie crust super designed, but if you wanted a little bit extra, I could fold it down and do it that way. Just trim this off, and then I'm gonna go through, you could use a fork, you could use a spoon, or you could just use your fingers to pinch your pie crust together. If you want it to be a little bit thicker pie crust on the edges, as I mentioned, just roll it down over the edge. Also, if you use a smaller pie dish, that will make a difference too. This is a pretty big one because this is going to be for a pumpkin pie, and I like to have those a little bit in a deeper pie pan or pie plate because when you're putting them to the oven, they tend to spill over, so I want to try to avoid that, and that's why I'm using this type of a pie plate today.